Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut this simple bustier gown, and if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. So here is my pattern, and I've gone ahead to mark my basic measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline. So for the upper part of this pattern, I will be stopping at the waistline. Then we are going to go ahead to cut out the skirt part of this pattern, which completes it into a gown. So at the upper part of my pattern, I'm just going to go ahead to divide my shoulder and mark. My shoulder is 14 divided by 2, I have 7 inches, and I will be coming down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope or shoulder slant. And after I'm done marking this, I'm going to go ahead to get my chest line or armhole line. So next I'll just place my tape and I'll be marking my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. At that point, I'm going to go ahead to draw a straight line. So after I'm done drawing that, I'm going to mark what I have on the shoulder at this point, and I will be drawing a straight line at that point, and I will connect. After I'm done connecting, I'll be dividing this into 2. To divide it into 2, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to fold it this way, and I will mark. So I'll come out by ½ inch at that point. So after coming out by ½ inch, I'm going to connect from my bust circumference divided by 4 at the chest line to the ½ inch I have at the armhole and to the upper part of the shoulder. So this is what I have after I'm done cutting out, and I'll just go ahead and blend this out very well. So the next step I'll take is to mark my dart. So I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 7 inches divided by 2, I have 3.5. So I'll go ahead and place my curved drew and I'll connect, drawing a straight line. Now I'll come up by 1.5 inches. This is where I want my neckline to start, and I'll draw a straight line. After that, I'll extend what I have here up, and I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides of my pattern, and I will be connecting it all the way down. For my dart intake at the lower part, I'll also mark 1 inch at both sides. So next, I'll just go ahead and place my curved draw and connect. Then go over to the other side and I'm going to connect. The next step I'll take is to place my curved draw and I will connect from my bust down to my under bust this way. And I'll use my marker to outline it. And at the other side, I'll also go ahead to connect. And I'll connect the upper part of my pattern this way with my marker, and also repeat this at the other side. Next, I'll be inserting my body measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, replace the dart intake I have at the upper part and add my sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace it and add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. So the next step I'll take is to go ahead to place my curved drew, and I'm going to connect all those marks that I made and then connect it down to the waistline. So the next thing I'll do from here is just to go ahead and use my marker to remark this, and we are going to be drawing out the sweetheart neckline by connecting that point to the chest line. So if you want yours deeper, you can go all the way to the bust point, and I'll just go ahead and come out by 0.75 inches, and at the shoulder I'll mark 1 inch. So you can go ahead and use 1.5 inches. It totally depends on how big you want your sleeve to be. And I'll also go ahead to connect this, and taking in mind these 2 inches that I'll extend this and I'll be connecting this all the way to the sleeve of the dress this way. So after that, I'm done marking, and the next step is just to go ahead to cut out my pattern. So I'll just go ahead and cut out my pattern. After cutting this out, we'll be moving over to the over to the back pattern of the dress. So now this is the back pattern. I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements: my shoulder to bust, shoulder to waistline. And here is my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. You can also use 2 inches for that. Next, to mark my dart, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and all my measurements will start after the zip. So next, I'll place my ruler and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line from the upper part to my waistline. To draw my dart, I'll be marking ½ inch at both sides of my waistline, and I'm going to connect from the waist upwards and also repeat it at the other side. So the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark my body measurements. I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 at this point and add my sewing allowance, so there's no dart on this pattern. At the waist, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and after marking that, I'll measure my dart intake, replace it and add my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to be connecting from the bust to my waistline. And after I'm done connecting, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to mark this out. So the next step is to work on the zipper area. I'll come in by ½ inch, place my ruler and I'll take it up to get rid of the bulging at the back of the zip, and I will mark this out, come down by 0.5 to make sure that the zip doesn't pop up, and I'll take this out. So starting from my nipple to nipple point, so I'll be marking 1 inch from that point, and after that I'll be drawing my sleeve, which is the same measurement with the one we have at the front. So after I'm done marking, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also join us in our other video. So after I'm done cutting out, we'll be moving over to the back. So for the skirt, I'm going to place my tape at the upper part and I'll mark my waist to hip point, which is about 7 inches. For a much taller person, you're going to use 8 inches. So if you're working with your half length, which is your shoulder to bust plus 3 inches, you're going to be measuring 10 inches to get your hip point. So we are just working with our normal shoulder to waist for this pattern. After this, you're going to place your tape and you're going to mark your waist to knee point. My waist to knee point is 20 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark that. After I'm done marking that, I'm going to be coming up by 2 inches because this dress is a 3/4 dress and you don't want the lower part to be free. The lower part is actually fitted, so that's why you need that measurement. So after marking that, I'll also mark my knee point. That 2 inches on top will be serving as a guide to make your dress fitted at the lower part. So going up to the pattern, I'm going to label my hip point. So here's my hip point and here is my waist point. So after that, I'll be marking my waist circumference divided by 4. And my waist is 28 divided by 4. I have 7 inches. I'll go ahead and mark. After I'm done marking that, I'll add 1 inch for my dart intake and go ahead and add my sewing allowance for the dress. Now at the hip point, I will mark my hip circumference divided by 4 and add 1 inch. My hip circumference is 40 divided by 4. I have 10, plus I used 1 inch for the sewing allowance, which is not a standard. I have 11. So whatever you have from that 11, you're going to be minusing 2 inches from your hip measurement. So after minusing it, I have 9 inches. So I marked the 9 inches on the knee measurement, on the 2 inches I came up from, and at the lower part. So if you're cutting your dress to get the full length, after cutting the upper part, place your tape at your waistline. My waistline is 17 inches and the total length I have here is about 41 inches. So I'll be using 1 inch to serve as my folding allowance for this pattern, and I'll go ahead to mark it and I'm going to draw out a line. So that is my folding allowance. And at the folding allowance also, you'll be marking that 9 inches. How we got that 9 inches is our hip circumference. My hip circumference, which is 40 divided by 4, I have 10, plus 1 inch for my sewing allowance, and I took out 2 to make the lower part fitted. So from the waistline, I connected to the hip, and from that point I am going to connect it to that 2 inches above the knee point, and from that part I'm going to also take it down to my knee point and then take it to the lower part of my skirt pattern this way. So this is what I have after I'm done cutting out. I'm just going to use my marker to outline this, and after that we are going to go ahead to mark our dart intake. So to mark your dart intake for the upper part of this pattern, you're going to place your tape and you're going to be marking your nipple to nipple divided by 2. Mine is 7 inches. I'll mark 3.5. So I'll be coming down by 6 inches. You can use a 4 inches or 6 inches dart, and I'll just come down. Now I'll be marking ½ inch on both sides, and I will be extending the dart lines all the way to the lower part, and you'll be repeating this for 2 sides of your skirt because you'll be cutting this on fold. After that, I'll just go ahead to cut out my skirt at this part. So after cutting this out, to cut the front pattern, all you have to do is to add your zipper allowance to the pattern you have already. So while I was cutting out my skirt, I added a zipper allowance in front of it. So this is if you're cutting with a pattern paper first, but if you're not cutting with a pattern paper, after cutting your skirt, what you're going to do is just to place this main pattern and add 2 inches in front. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. See you in our next video. Thanks.